Good morning, everyone. This is Tim Harris, and this is the Harris Real Estate University. And this is, of course, Friday, and like every Friday here at Harris Real Estate University, it's the Superstar Interview. Now, what is the Superstar Interview? It really is three things. During this time, we choose one of three things that we present to you, one of three formats. The first format is where we interview a top-producing Harris Real Estate University coaching student. Now, if you've been tuned in, listening in for the past few Fridays, you've heard from Chantel Ray, who's selling 100 homes a month. You've heard from other coaching students who are also selling upwards to 300-400 houses a year. You've also heard from coaching students who are selling 50 and 75 houses a year. And we've also interviewed someone who was not selling really any houses and just focusing on doing VPOs. All those people are superstars in our minds because whenever you are accomplishing your goals, whenever you're doing what you set out to do, you are a superstar. There's no specific number in mind. It really is up to you. So other Fridays what we'll do is we'll interview someone who is an author. We've interviewed plenty of authors, maybe somebody who's written a book recently that we thought would be influential on you. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the real estate space. I know a lot of folks are listening to these interviews now. I get the emails. That aren't realtors, but they're in the real estate space, and they'd like me to help them expose their book or something, a project they're working on to you. And so for any of you out there that fit the bill, email Tim at Harris Real Estate University, and we'll talk, see if you might be a good fit for us. And the last category of person that we interview is someone who I really think is going to be an influencer, someone who's really has all the characteristics, someone who's a superstar, someone who probably has a lot of background with teaching and coaching, and someone who I know is going to have some influence and at least open up some ideas in your mind. And I think that's no better description, really, albeit not very eloquently, than Mr. Matt Wagner. So, Matt, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. And it's been awesome talking to you the last several conversations and emails. I mean, it's refreshing to talk to somebody that's completely in touch with today's market, and it's great. It's great talking to people that get it.
Good thing you qualified that statement when you said in touch with today's market, because believe me, I'm not in touch with much else. All right, so Matt, you are an interesting cat. You're not a realtor, but you're somebody, and everyone out there listening, this is how I discovered Matt, or how Matt discovered me. I found out that he was working with a lot of our superstars. That's it. So I got an email, or actually a contact from Matt on Facebook, and Matt said, hey, you know what, Tim, we have a lot in common. I'm working with this superstar of yours, this superstar, this coaching client, and all of these guys were really successful. So I thought, well, if Matt's doing something to help agents succeed, then he definitely needs to be a superstar for Harris Real Estate University. So, Matt, what exactly do you do?
Well, what I do, Tim, I've worked around the radio industry for a lot of years. It's over 20 plus years. And I first started helping just any old client, whether it was a car dealership, a casino, a real estate agent, whatever it was, help them use radio the right way. And it was about 10 years ago, actually. We just celebrated our anniversary with Jay Kinder in Lawton, Oklahoma. I was working at K-Law radio station there, and I brought him an idea where I said, hey, what if I put you on the morning show? What if I made you, we sounded like we did like an interview, and then, you'd like to think that it would do well. Well, we wound up doubling his business, and in Realtor Magazine, in the 30 under 30, he was nominated for selling 230 homes, and he attributed radio to about a third of those listings. And so one day we were having lunch, and I said, hey, what if I could clone you by 30? And that's when he said, you really ought to come with me to this radio conference. And I go to this conference, and it was mind-blowing. I start meeting all these agents coming up to me saying, hey, can you do this? Can you do this for me? So what exactly is that? Well, it's really four things. One, I help be the neutral third party. Much like a buyer agent would help somebody buy a house, I help someone buy media time. So I work with one agent per market, and so what I do is I help identify the best station that fits their criteria, that fits who they're going after. Then every station that you go to, if you interviewed 15 radio stations, they would all tell you that they're the best fit for you, because that's what they do, is they try to sell advertising. I cut through all that and say, this is a station that's the best fit. I'm the neutral third party that has the best interest for the realtor in mind. Number one. Number two, I help negotiate what I call the most cost-effective schedule. Stations will tell you that you have to run 15 to 20 ads per week, And, you know, in their world, that's normally what it takes. What I do is a little bit different. I go in and I look and say, okay, if we buy a first-class ticket, we find the right time, the right, you know, time of the day with the right personality. I want to make it stand out. And so when I make it stand out, by doing that the right way, it may cost a little more for that particular spot, but what it does, instead of having to buy 15 or 20 commercials, we can actually get away with 3 or 4. And it's a much, much more cost-effective. And, I mean, the results shown. I mean, I've got several people that have done only 3 commercials.
Matt, let me interrupt you here for a second. So,
yeah.
Just so I'm clear, you will choose, or they choose you, one agent per market, okay? And then how do you define your market? How big is a market?
Well, that's a really good question, because what will happen is, you know, a market is determined by the radio station. Because, like, for example, like and the best way I could describe it is, like Glenn Beck, for example, or Sean Hannity. They're on news talk stations. They're in a market size like New York is all one market. That could embrace New York City. It could embrace part of New Jersey. It could embrace part of Connecticut. So it's really defined. The market is determined by the coverage that the radio station services. So you might have one station that'll service, like in San Francisco, for instance. You might have one station that'll service San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. So even though those are 3 markets, there's really only one station that services all 3 of those. Now that said, the way that I work is that I'll go into a market and say I'll work on a first right of refusal basis with an agent in that market. So let's say, for instance, San Francisco. There's an agent that doesn't touch San Jose, doesn't touch Oakland. I could go to him and say, hey, I got an agent in Oakland. Would you mind if I worked with them? No, I don't consider them competition. So as long as but I've got to be protected, because in this industry, the other thing that I do is I'm a huge believer in masterminds. And so when I do masterminds, one of the things that agents I just found over the years that they're much more free to share what's working and what's not working when they know their competition's not sitting in the room. So I'm very protective about looking out for my agents that way.
So here's what I heard you say is the bottom line. And by the way, guys, one of the, I'm not going to certainly say originators, but one of the first people to really make it big, at least on a national scale with doing radio, national scale being that he's the one that educated a lot of agents about it originally, I think was Russell Shaw. And Russell Shaw is also a Harris Real Estate University superstar, by the way. So you're seeing a reoccurring theme with these radio ads. And we're going to get into it more specifically, because I know a lot of you are going to think, well, I want to start running radio ads, and maybe you should. But there's a time where you should and time where you shouldn't, and there's markets where you should and there's markets where you shouldn't. So we're going to get into all the specifics in a second. But what I heard Matt say is really the bottom line is if there's an existing client of his in a particular market, he'll go to, and there's someone else that wants to start running ads, he'll go to that agent and he'll ask them, you know, is this person too close for you, too close for comfort, are you competitors? And so there's no real geographic boundary. There's just more or less, there's just an understanding that you're not going to obviously start working with someone who's a direct competitor for one of your existing clients. That's what I'm translating.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so you didn't give yourself credit, too, and this is what you and I were talking about prior to the call. What Matt also does, not only does he, oh, by the way, a quick side note here. When you're buying any kind of media, radio, TV, whatever, you do have, there's an agency rate, and then there's the rate that, say, I would pay if I called into the radio station looking for ads, correct?
Correct.
So here's the thing, because my next question is Matt's going to tell us how it gets paid, and I assume, Matt, you're getting the agency rate plus probably a little bit of a discount for your client versus the realtor who wanted to take out ads themselves on these same radio stations would automatically be paying more. So in essence, your service is free. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I use the analogy a lot, and most people identify with it. I could bypass a realtor and go buy a house myself or sell my house by myself. It's true. I might save the 7% or 3%, but in reality, if we all know the logic behind that. You get taken to the cleaners, and there's a lot of hidden expenses that you don't see, and there's a lot of advantages. You know, for example, there's concessions that you can ask for that I know to ask for that the average consumer just doesn't. The station doesn't want you to know is available. You know, for example, to get like the first position in the stop set, I know to ask for that, and I know how to ask for it.
Stop here. Stop here. Now, first position on a stop set, that is the first commercial that runs after the show, or basically when there's a break, correct?
Right.
Right. So if you're the second commercial, yeah, go ahead.
So what happens is, and the reason that most radio campaigns fail is because most of the time the commercials fall right inside the middle of a commercial stop set, and typically what happens is once the commercials start, people flip the channel. So mine stand out, they sound different, and they grab people's attention. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, whether it's a jingle, whether it's a testimonial, whether it's an interview, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you have to know what to ask for, and you have to know how to ask for it.
Do those cost extra? That when you're the first commercial that plays, like if you guys are watching Wheel of Fortune, and then go ahead. They
do cost slightly more money, and it's interesting because that's where stations try to talk. It's funny, I don't really have anybody that does this on a media buying level around the country. The only people that I really compete against are radio stations that try to undercut me and try to say, you can do it cheaper if you work with us. But the bottom line is, they save money, when they don't use an agency, because their commission, they make 15% typically, but when they work with an agency, they're only making half the commission because they're going to give some of it up. So actually, they've got a financial interest in that. But secondly, they don't want to offer the concessions because then they can save that for bigger clients. So you have to know, what you're really, is that person really looking out for your best interest, or, are they just looking to sell you airtime?
Well, let's give a real life example. You and I don't have that much time. All right, Julie, I want you to jump on. Hopefully, she hasn't gone too far.
I'm right here.
All right, so Lance and Karen Kenmore, they're up in a market that's very conservative. It's not like a big bustling city market. They've been with Harris Real Estate University, forever. So you started working with Lance and Karen when?
I think probably.
I'm asking him, Joel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
Go ahead.
They both work at the same time, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, she's their coach. What'd you say?
About 2 years ago.
Okay, about 2 years ago. All right. So, Julie, you might not know this. Well, I know Julie does. How many? They're tracking for how many units this year?
111.
Okay. So this year so far has been their best year ever, correct?
Closed and pending 58.
All right, there you go. So if you're a graduate coaching client, you better believe we track your numbers for you. All right, so closed and pending 58 so far. And as far as their spokes, as far as their lead generators.
This is a big one.
This is the big one, right.
I'll give you an example. Lance went on 4 listing appointments last week, and 2 of them were from the radio.
Okay, so there you go. Can't give you any better testimony.
And that's pretty typical, I would say, for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. So, but, Matt, for the average realtor, let's just use, we can use Lance and Karen, or you can pull some other examples. How long does it take for them actually to start seeing the benefits of their investment with you?
It's a good question. It really does vary. I mean, I would love to say immediately out of the box you can tell that, but for some people, it takes a good, 8 to 12 weeks to finally start seeing some real return. I think what it is, some people, it's a difference between hearing and listening. I've used the analogy too sometimes of a favorite TV show. The first time you ever saw, Cheers, did you love it? Or the first time you ever saw The Office, did you love it? Some people develop favorite shows over a period of time, and the fact is not everybody is ready to list a house immediately. One of the things that we do a little bit differently, we go after the serious seller. We don't want just the free home evaluations or just the general branding. We're very specific in who we want. And so it may just be that given week, that person is listening may not be ready to sell their house. And if I don't want to sell my house, I don't care what you're offering. But when I'm ready, that's when you want to build that brand in someone's mind so they're ready to call you. So I typically will watch for about 6 weeks, and I want to see something. I want to see, like, somebody calling saying, hey, I'm listed with another agent, or, my home's in the market, but I'm under contract, so when I'm done, I'll call you. Or,
well, Matt, in all fairness, it really does come down to how good the agent is at converting the lead, and also how good they're at pre-qualifying the lead, how good they are at actually getting the house listed. So it's one thing for you to generate tons of, it's funny, Matt, I think you'll appreciate this. If you ask 100 agents what their biggest challenge is in the business, there are 99 that are going to say lead generation. And that very well might be true, but so if you just dump a bunch of leads on them and you ask them the same question 6 months later, they're going to give you the same answer, because their real challenge isn't lead generation. It's knowing how to convert leads. It's being able to know what to say and what questions to ask, what order of the questions to ask, how to, not just build rapport and get the seller to like you, but it's also to know if you can help that seller. So
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the 4 reasons I tell people the radio either succeeds or fails. And this is really any level of marketing. And this, I may not be able to work with everybody on the call, but if I can share this one particular point, this can be a game changer for a lot of people. You hit on number 4. I'll just rattle them off real quick if that's okay.
Go for it.
Number 1, knowing your demo. Many people buy things, whether it's a billboard or radio or TV, because they like it, but it's not necessarily the clientele that they specifically need or they want. And that's that's where a lot of people make a mistake. The second thing is making sure that it's the copy. What are you actually saying? What's the call to action? What's the offer? You mentioned Russell Shaw. Russell, the reason he had such success, he really pinpointed the biggest fears that sellers had, and he went after it. He knew who his target was. Number 3, making sure that there's enough frequency, enough time, and it's well placed, and you're giving it, a good, 3 months at least to begin seeing it. I can't tell you people that have bailed even after several months, and then they get calls after the fact of people that still remembered them months after the fact, and were finally ready to list. So it's allowing enough time for that. And then 4th, internal conversion. This is why I love being on calls like this or working with great coaches like you guys, because I know I can make the phone ring, but I can't control what happens when leads come in the house. But when you've got a great coach that has the systems in place and the conversion and the accountability, then you know that you have examples like Lance Kenmore or Chris Heller, that are working. And that's why, because they've got their systems in place. So those 4 elements are, I think, whatever marketing you do, I think those things are the keys.
So, guys, we have a lot of questions that Matt and I created. We're kind of skipping around. Matt's doing great. I'm going to kind of skip to, I think, what probably is the most important question. A lot of you guys are asking, is radio right for me? Matt, let's just give them an idea of what kind of financial commitment they'd be looking at for 90 days, and then they can determine whether or not radio is right for them. Because, honestly, guys, and I'm sure Matt's going to back me up on this, radio is not right for everybody. You do have to have a certain level of cash flow and consistency in your business before you take this risk. And I know there's a small percentage of you, but a percentage of you out there nonetheless, that don't have that cash flow, that don't have that level of commitment in your business yet, and you want to just go ahead and throw everything to the wall and see what sticks. This would not work for you. You've got to get your skill set higher. You've got to get your business more consistent. And this is something maybe you add on after you've got your first few spokes built. Let's say, for example, after you've closed a certain number of homes per month, things like that. At the end of the day, it's a personal comfort level with financial risk, because that's what this is. Anytime you try something new, there is some risk involved, albeit this probably in terms of risk is a low risk failure, provided that you have you know how to convert the leads and hit on Matt's other 3 points. But Matt, how much would it cost me? And I know it depends on the market, so give me a range.
Right.
What kind of commitment am I looking at for 90 days with you?
Well, I don't, and again, I'm looking for the best ROI. So when I go in, I want to find, and you can find cheap stations out there. There's no question about it. I mean, you can find, it's just like there's a lot of, 2% realtors out there that you can find. If you shop for the lowest price, you're going to find it. But the problem is if you're on the wrong station with the wrong audience, you could piss money away. And that's just, I've actually walked away from business, from opportunities, because I didn't feel like it was going to be a home run, and I didn't want to have to look them in the eye 90 days later and say, watch someone lose money. So that's number one. But the reality, again, you're talking about the markets. I'll go from small to big. Like in, say, Lance's market, small market.
Hey, Matt, you're going from muffled to clear. So I think you're probably moving your mouthpiece.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's better.
Okay. So, like, for example, Lance's market, small market. I can buy spots for $40, $50 a spot. So for him, I think we spend roughly $2,500 to $3,000 a month, and that's being on 3 stations that we run on. Of course, I would love to say that's the case in every market. But when you deal with a market like L.A., Chicago, Detroit, you're dealing with 3-4 million people. The average station reaches 100 to 300,000 people. So that's going to dictate the price. And so typically those stations will vary anywhere between, roughly anywhere from, $250 to upwards $600-700, depending on the size of the market. So,
you're talking about a spot, Matt.
Yeah, that's per spot. So typically, and the problem is if you only run one or two a week, it just doesn't reach enough people. So you've really got to stand out. And again, I like buying the first class ticket. You can buy a general rotator, but the problem is it's like the spray and pray model. You can spray a lot of stuff out there and hope people see it, but if you can't afford to do it the right way, you can throw money away really fast. And so
from the
I
low
would say,
end, yeah,
low end, $1,500 to $2,500 a month in a small market. Big market, you're looking, I'd say mid-sized market, meaning like say Orlando, Tampa, Detroit. You're looking at generally between $4,000 to $6,000 a month. Big markets, Chicago, LA, New York. You're looking at $8,000 to $12,000. But there's very few people that I recommend look at stations like in those three major markets. I mean, you really got to have.
I also heard you say that there's no sense in doing this, half-baked. If you're not going to be really pulling the trigger and doing correct, targeted ads, and guys, we're going to talk about, Matt said copy, that's ad guys speak for, we're going to tell you what, and let you listen to what the radio spots sound like. Oh, by the way, if you skeptics out there, Matt's not paying me for anything for doing this. Nothing up front, nothing behind the scenes. So for those of you out there who think that there's something, going on, there isn't. This is just information I know that a lot of you, or at least some of you, will benefit from. So Matt, specifically with what I'm hearing is there's no sense in doing this unless you're going to do it and pull the trigger completely. You can't just test it, or you can't just sample it. If you're going to do it, kind of turn the whole thing over to Matt, use his ads, and then trust that he's going to steer you in the right direction, because Matt's business is made off your long-term investment. So if you keep on spending money with him through his, essentially this is an agency every single month, obviously that's how he makes money and builds his business. So his goal is actually the same as our goal here at Harris Real Estate University, is to keep you happy every single day, every single week, every single month. And that way you stay a nice client, and that's I think. In
harmony with that, Tim, I say this often, I was profitable from day one 8.5 years ago. I don't need the money, but I love home runs. I love stories like Lance Kenmore. I love stories like Chris Hill. I love high success stories, because when I can pick up the phone and call any one of my clients and they love to hear from me and they rave about me, I get a high off that, because I know I've made a difference in someone's life. So and when Lance said you guys are the same way, and especially because you don't want to take a dime for referring me business, that's the kind of class act that I love being affiliated with. So my accolades to you guys too.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Do you have a sample you can play for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll play it. There's a couple of different ones that I use. This is one that I created. Anybody in the Midwest that knows Bob and Tom, they're actually pretty popular in Lance's market. What we did was we actually got them to record a piece that we used as so it sounds like an interview spot, and we used this to plug Lance's talk show. Here you go.
With our friend Lance Kenmore of Prudential. Lance, what's the word on real estate this week?
Hey guys, the spring market is just around the corner, and first-time home buyers are wondering what programs are out there to help and how they are funded. This week on the Tri-Cities Real Estate Update on Saturday at 9 a.m. on 870 a.m., we talk directly with Housing Resources Specialist Michelle Burden from the city of Richland. If you're interested in buying a home in Richland this year, don't miss this show.
Thanks, Lance. If you want your home sold fast and for the most money guaranteed, give our friend Lance Kenmore a call today at 727-8977. That's 727-8977. Or even easier, go to kenmoreteam.com and start packing. What's happening?
You hear that okay?
Yeah, we heard you. That sounds good. All right, good. So
Good.
that worked. That's old school.
Yeah.
Hold the mic up to the recorder. So do you have any other sample ads queued up so we can play maybe some others?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So that was kind of like a celebrity endorsement, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, this is another one that I had with, if anyone knows Glenn Beck.
If you recently pulled your home off the market because it just didn't sell, hi, it's Glenn Beck, and believe me, I know firsthand the frustration of getting bad advice. However, there is an answer for you. Orlando, there's a realtor right in your backyard that I, quite frankly, wish would move up to Connecticut and sell my home.
You can sell your home at a price and a deadline you'll agree to, or they'll have it bought for cash. I'm talking about Andre Bustamante of Bustamante Real Estate. He can guarantee to sell your home. Yeah, it's easy. Andre uses an extensive marketing system that attracts hundreds of buyers week after week. That creates demand on his homes. Your home. This helps him sell in days, not months, and he'll sell your home for the most money. Plus, if you're not happy at any point, Andre lets you fire him, and you don't pay anything. So big deal. Talking to Andre Bustamante is not going to cost you a dime. But not knowing your options could cost you time and a small fortune. Get your home sold. Guaranteed. Call Andre directly at 877-920-2010. That's 877-920-2010. And sorry,
yeah, no, we can hear you. So there was a lot. Matt, let's break this down a little bit, and let's kind of point out to the listeners what was it that they were hearing. Like, so the first one was Bob and Tom doing a promotion, Lance talking about it a little bit, and obviously all that was scripted. But the main goal of the first spot was to get them to listen to Lance's radio show that he does on an AM station in his market, correct?
Yes. Well, both.
Okay.
It was a call to action, but it was also his talk show. Absolutely.
Now, then the second ad that we listened to was impressive as all get up, because you had Glenn Beck, who I'm sure everybody knows who Glenn Beck is. You had Glenn Beck, who was doing a ad for one of your clients. Now, I assume that the Glenn Beck is charging a premium for doing a spot like that.
Well, normally in most markets, he charges $1,000 a month for his talent fee. Because I work with him in over 50 markets, I cut that down where I get him for $250 a market.
Nice. Okay, so you can have someone listening right now that wants to make can hire you in their market because there's not a direct competitor in their market. They could hypothetically have Dr. Laura or Glenn Beck or, I don't know, some other radio talent do a spot for them, just like what they just heard, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, and cool.
What helps is, when you have credibility, because they're very careful on who they pick, because obviously when you go at that level, they want to know that it's going to be a good commitment. They've never met this person, so they've got to trust the agency that's bringing them this. It really helps when I go in and say, I'm in 50 markets with Sean Hannity, I'm in 50 markets with Glenn Beck. I've worked with Dave Ramsey, I've worked with Neil Bortz. I mean, when you drop names, they tend to trust you. You've got more credibility. So it definitely helps when you can negotiate that.
So their fee for doing that, Matt, is basically $250 a month, no matter how many times you run the spot with their voice. For
that particular deal, yes. For Glenn. Now for Sean, it's a little bit different. Every talent's a little bit different. Some people get paid per spot, some people per month. It really varies, but I negotiate down the best possible deal for that.
So let's pull out what the elements were of that second ad, because I heard there's a lot of, guys, it's called USPs, unique selling propositions, really carry away points from that radio ad that I heard. So, Matt, can you point out to the listeners what they were?
Well, number one, you want to have the pain. I mean, you got whatever you're doing, you got to find people's pain. So, if you recently pulled your home off the market because it just didn't sell, that's really going after expireds. And that's number one. So you know who your listener is. Then, talking about the importance of marketing, and I like to contrast what the average agent does. I mean, most people don't know the difference. But when you say that Andre attracts hundreds of buyers per month, that paints the picture that, they're going to get an agent that's going to have an aggressive marketing system to attract buyers. If they just had to pull their home off the market, the agent they were working with, had 2 or 3 showings, that sucks. And so now they're going to see, wow, this guy's got all the action going. Number 2. Then his guarantee, look, if I can't sell it, I'll buy it. And then the validity, hey, look, this is real. This is how he does it. And then if you're not happy, fire him. That's an old Russell Shaw line. I mean, and the psychology behind what Russell does is great because, I actually just talked with him and his wife, extensively about it. And the bottom line is what are the fears people have? The people's biggest fears are their home's not going to sell, and they don't get stuck with a bad agent. They're going to be locked in. So you remove those fears. That's why he calls it the easy exit listing. So
right, perfect.
Those are all.
So what really you're doing is in any good ad, right? You're just basically pulling out, as what you said, what the pains are, what most sellers are concerned about. And agents, when you're dealing with sellers, any kind of seller, distressed seller, normal seller, they always have the same exact fears. And so opposed to dealing with those objections or those concerns or those challenges when you're talking with the seller, what Matt does is he basically puts them on the table. Listen, I know you're worried about this stuff. I know these are the things that you're concerned about. So let's just address them right away. You know, if we start doing business together, if you don't like me, fire me. You know, if you don't like, for example, if something's not working out, this is how the commission works, or this is how the nature of the listing contract will work, or kind of taking away all the seller's normal mooring lines or fears and basically making it so they feel comfortable moving forward with you. Now, the interesting thing is that if you really think about the USPs that he's pointing out, they're not really novel because there's things that have been in the industry forever, but the way that he is approaching them and presenting them, that's what's novel. And that really makes it stand out. And I have to think, Matt, if you could choose what types of ads to run, the celebrity endorsement ad or the ad like we heard first of all with Lance, what types work better?
You know, that's a good question. It really works. It really depends on the market. And I don't want to try to dodge the question by saying that, but I'm not cookie cutter. You know, for example, there are some markets where as much as I love Glenn, he doesn't have as much impact as a local personality would have. And there are some markets where a big voice like him, people are wowed by it because they don't give much credibility to local people. So it really varies in the market, and that's where I take a good close look at, you know, what personality in this market is really going to have impact, and that's where I base my choice on. And sometimes, you know, it does take experimenting. I mean, even like with Lance, I mean, we tried a couple of stations that. You know, we were on 4 stations last year. 2 of them were home runs. The other ones just didn't really pull anything. So we switched our gears. We took the budget off that station, put it on a different station, and now we're getting good return off it. So, you know, there is some experimentation, but, you know, we'll watch very carefully who's making the phone ring. And so, you know, sometimes national, sometimes local. It really depends. It just depends on the station and the market.
I'm curious, Matt, you've been running ads, obviously. You ran them through the boom. You had a lot of, the message just totally changed, I'm sure. How have your radio spots changed, and how are they changing to meet this new market?
That's a great question, and a couple of ways. One, it was years ago during the boom when home evaluations were just the thing. I mean, I remember the first year I started with Kinder, I mean, he showed me a stack the size of the computer screen of home evaluations that he generated. Back in the early days, that was great. Now, I think people are scared to offer home evaluations. They're afraid to see what their home is really worth. So we steered away from that, and we went towards more of just the serious seller. And what made me feel good, I was sitting in a mastermind with Gary Keller, and he told his top 100 agents, you need to go after serious sellers. And I just looked at one of my agents and just smiled because that's what we've been doing all along, and that's why it's working. But the other thing that we've done to change it is short sales. I know it's real easy. But also, I would say a good example, too, with Chris Heller with buyers. We thought during this last couple of years that there are just some absolutely smoking deals. If there's ever a time to appeal to buyers, you know, now would be the time to do it. But what we found was, I mean, and you're talking San Diego, where we had properties that were, you know, waterfront properties for less than $100,000, $1 million properties that were being sold for $400,000. We tried one spot a week to test it. Every week would be like the featured steal of the week. He was actually sharing an REO property that wasn't even released yet from the bank. And we got like one call in like 8 weeks. And it was pathetic.
Wow.
So all it reinforced in my mind was, you know, and I've even got some people now that got the HUD account, and so they want to promote HUD homes on the air. And I told them, don't do it. Buyers don't buy it. They said, I don't care. We want to satisfy HUD. Even if it just means keeping the account, we'll spend the money. And they've gotten very little results from it. And so
you're saying don't look for buyers, look for motivated sellers.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay.
I mean,
so that's
because the thing is, and short sales, the other area of it, we tried going the angle of going after short sale business, and just what we found was that I liken short sale sellers, and most people agree with this, to alcoholics. You're not going to get it. It's very hard to get somebody to admit that they need to do a short sale. Generally what has to happen is you have to have an intervention, which is usually the listing presentation, where you show them the market, you show them the facts, and you show them this is what you need to do. And so we just found when we did call-outs for short sales, it just didn't work. And we tried it, with some of the most credible agents in North America, but people, I think, were afraid to call. That's why, we changed gears. We don't really – it's a natural process of the market. You're going to attract those people, but you don't want to scare off the serious sellers that have equity. And that's the beauty of the last couple of years.
You said it earlier, Matt. You said it earlier when you were listening to that Glenn Beck sample radio ad, right? Glenn was going, it's kind of funny on a side note. If Glenn Beck really has his house for sale in Connecticut, every time that radio ad runs, that has got to really hurt her ego.
She never hears it. It's not a national ad, so she never hears it.
Okay. Well, and here's what I heard you say with regards to like those, the different types of ads. Going after expireds, you're going to get short sales. That's a fact. Because you said it correctly. I love that. I'm going to steal it, by the way, about the intervention because it is true. But, that intervention happens when that expired seller calls and you discover that they do have to sell, they are motivated, and they haven't sold because of the fact that, well, guess what? The house is overpriced. Here's a little, hopefully not big secret for all of you listening now and replay. By the way, you guys can ask questions anytime. I know some of you have, and I will use those questions in a second with Matt. But the 99.9% of the time, the house because it's overpriced. Now, if you're in virtually every market in the country, there's a really good chance that in order to get the house sold, the seller's going to have to do some sort of short sale or short payoff. Remember, Harris Real Estate University coaching students, not every underwater owner should do a short sale. There are alternatives to that which won't have any of the credit effects. So just keep that in mind, short payoff versus short sale. But that's the conversation you need to have. Like Matt said, it's an intervention, bringing them to the realities of the market and the fact that they're underwater. So that's it, basically. You focused on the same core message, Matt, but you've kind of catered it more towards maybe a seller that's having a hard time selling, whereas maybe before you were looking, more gearing towards more optimistic sellers and potential buyers. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, good. All right, so there's a great question that I saw come in. Let me find it again.
I am married.
Well, that was awkward. All right.
I'm kidding.
You know what? Here it is. All right, this was one of the questions that you and I discussed ahead of time, but I thought this was a really good question. Radio shows. I have a lot of superstars, a lot of coaching clients that are doing AM radio shows. Tell us about that.
You know what? The great thing about shows, and I wish it was in my perfect world they would be available in every market. But the fact is sometimes they're just not. Sometimes stations will sell block programming, a half an hour to an hour at a time. Some stations have it available, some stations don't. And it's just and it's tricky because there are some small, tiny stations that will offer it, at a dirt cheap price, and it looks like a great deal, but the problem is it is on the weekends, generally, in most cases. And, if that's when the listenership is really down. So the mistake that I see a lot of people make is that they'll just rely on that, and, they don't get listeners until they give up. And the other thing, too, is they don't really have content that really, it's just a talk fest. And that doesn't, you've really got to have your call to actions within the talk show to make it productive. So it can be a fantastic vehicle. And in a great world, what it does is it associates you with the station. It basically brands you as the expert on that station. So it's been
and
a
that's
great.
How they treat you too.
Exactly. What'll happen is, and I know Nina's told me, Chris's girlfriend, they'll be jogging and they'll stop and someone will talk to them and they'll say, "Oh yeah, you got that show, right?" That's what they associate you with, and it's like a credibility statement. So it can be really great. And the other thing it can do is it can help zero base it because you can get sponsors on the show that can help pay for it. And we've helped several people do that.
Chris Heller, they're involved with Harris Real Estate University too. And those of you who don't know who Chris Heller is, guess what? He's the president of Keller Williams International. In addition to that, he's also a huge producer down the San Diego area. And, Matt, I'm sure you'll agree, but San Diego is probably the best test bed for any sort of new ideas because it's one of the most competitive markets in the country. Chris had me interviewed on his radio show actually after the Superstar interview I did with him a while ago. By the way, if you guys want to listen to Chris Heller's interview or any of the other previous Superstar interviews we've done, here's my little ad inside my radio show like you were just suggesting. Go to Go to realestateinsidernews.com and click on the tab at the top that says Superstar Interviews. You can go back and listen to all the past interviews for free. So he had me on, and I assume this is one of the radio shows that you helped him set up, and it was very professional. I mean, and he was there with his producer. It was just like listening to Dr. Laura, basically, without all the great advice. No, I'm just kidding, Chris, in case you're listening. But he interviewed me, and we talked about strategic defaults. We talked about how the tides are changing in the real estate markets and how homeowners are. We talked about a lot of controversial stuff. It was fun. It was professional. I'm sure he got business from it. So really, the essence of what I'm taking from you is this is a way for a realtor not just to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, but to build a high level of credibility that just doesn't normally come from a realtor because of the associations, because you have a radio show. One of the things we didn't talk about, which is kind of interesting, what is your opinion on branding?
Branding is important. I mean, you definitely want to have an image, but branding in itself doesn't make the phone ring. I mean, you've really got to have a call to action and a reason for people to call you. It definitely, you want to differentiate yourself. You want to have something that stands alone about you. And because if you don't, but if you don't, if it isn't compelling to make the phone call, then it can be wasted money. Does that help?
No, well, I mean, you're saying it nicely, and really, it's going to see change in mindset. And there was a lot of our interview person from last week talked about Hobbs and Herder. And Hobbs and Herder does, without a doubt, if some of you out there are wanting to do some high-level branding where you're wanting to make yourselves look like Oprah, have your own magazine and all that, if that's what you think will work for you, call Hobbs and Herder. But there was a trend, it seems, and it is kind of interesting. Our industry sort of follows different trends. One would argue that right now it's the distressed property trend, I think, and that will probably last another 5-10 years in some markets. Before, like back in the 90s, there was a lot of ego stuff, a lot of branding, a lot of me and my dog, and these big fancy pictures and agents on bus benches and billboards and all these types of things. And Matt, you've had these same conversations. They're always awkward. You ask the realtor, so does that billboard work, or do all those pictures of you and your dog work? And they never could give you a definitive answer. And I like what you're doing, and this falls hand in glove with what we do at Harris Real Estate University. It's if you can't track it, don't do it. Poof, that's it. Money spent, money made. How much did you make? What was your margin? Did that make sense? Did you get enough return on your investment? And if you didn't, just don't do it. And the problem with branding, guys, and what I like about Matt is he's not playing this game, is when you talk to radio and TV people, they're always going to lead with branding. They're always going to try to get you to buy off on the idea that their ads work, even though you can't quantify them, right? So if someone recognizes you in their grocery store, but they're calling their friend to list their house, what difference does it make? It makes no difference. Your point and your goal, assuming the point of view being in business is to make a profit, you got to really put this branding thing in perspective and just focus on something that you can actually track. I mean, Matt, am I saying this right? You make a great
point. If I could illustrate it, I actually had this conversation with Greg Newman several years ago in San Diego, and I said there's a difference between being interesting and being compelling. You can be interesting because he wanted to write his own scripts and he wanted to do his own verbiage, and I love Greg to death. I think he's a great guy. But the thing is, his radio wasn't pulling. People would hear him, but they weren't calling, and that's the difference. You could be interesting, but if you're not compelling, people won't pick up the phone and call you, and that's a huge, huge difference between branding and this. And I think what happened was, years ago, the reason why those worked years ago is because, in a hot market, where all you got to do is stick a sign in the yard and sell your house. Branding disguises that. It can look like it's working, but in a tighter market now, where homes aren't selling, it is tougher. Every dollar counts. You've really got to look and say, okay, what am I doing? Is this getting a return on investment for me? And we watch that very, very carefully. And especially because what's the first thing to go when the budget shrinks? It's advertising. So I have to hold that accountable. And the fact that, we've doubled and tripled over the last 3 years, I'd like to think that that's a result of people making money.
Well, Greg is also a Harris Real Estate University superstar, and you guys can listen to his interview as well. Just go to realestateinsidernews.com. His was from a year or two ago, so you'll have to skip back quite a ways. But that you bring up an interesting point about the shift. When we talked about the shift in the message that you've had to do, more focused on expireds. We've talked about the shift in the mindset that agents have to have when they're deciding to spend any money on anything. In other words, bring results now, opposed to the branding. Trying to make yourself a celebrity, basically, is the essence of it. What other big changes have you seen or are you seeing from your perspective from the national landscape happening in the real estate industry? It's kind of a general question. I'm curious what you'll say.
It's funny. We had a really good talk about this the other day, Tim, and it was about the REO world and just how volatile it is. I mean, a lot of people have ridden that tide for a long time, but I saw this, one of my agents in Orlando, actually, Andre, who I played earlier, he saw it coming where a lot of, it varies. There are going to be several months where it becomes a heavy short sales and the banks will be more flexible. Then there are months where REOs will come back. But what I'm seeing is a lot of smart REO agents diversifying to where they're now developing a residential side of their business while still working the REO side, realizing that if this goes, if and when this goes away, which it will eventually, but they're covered either way, and they're building long-term business. And I think that's something that we're very attuned to, because obviously I want to be around, for 20 more years, doing this. And so we've got to watch it very carefully.
That's a point that actually Greg Newman, who you just mentioned, brought up at a Harris Real Estate University private event we did 2 Mays ago in Laguna Beach. And Greg got up in front of the group, and he delivered that exact same message. He said, we're in a cycle like no other cycle before. There's no real, comparisons to what this real estate correction is about, and no one really knows how long it's going to last. Let's just assume a while. But he said, don't ignore your centers of influence and past clients. He said, see this as an opportunity to build your business. And Matt, this is just one of the basics of Harris Real Estate University, are spokes. So what we teach agents to do, and I can tell by what you're saying is this is something you also have them, or at least suggest for them to do, is you don't just rely on one source of business, be it REO or short sale or even your centers of influence and past clients. You have to have multiple spokes. Think of a wheel. The more spokes a wheel has, the stronger the wheel is. That wheel, you're on your bike and you've got your wheel in the front of your bike and you hit a little dollop in the road and you've only got 2 or 3 spokes or one spoke, as most agents do. That wheel's going to collapse. You're going to obviously fall and tumble. Whereas if you have multiple spokes, you hit that same bump, there might be a little shuddering to the overall wheel, but you keep on rolling down the road. And that's what I'm hearing you say. And the nice thing about what you're doing is your radio spots, and we didn't talk about TV at all, but that overlaps. I mean, that will reinforce your message with your centers of influence and past clients. You can use this for prospecting short sales because they may have heard of your radio ads or they'll probably be calling you. You could certainly use this as on your resume when you're getting assets from asset management companies. I mean, there's this level of marketing really does rise your ship on all different planes, which is kind of cool because not a lot of things do that.
No, I appreciate that. Well, I mean, and I know something else, Gary, along those same lines. Gary Keller even said with his agents a year ago. He said there's basically several types of agents. There's the residential, there's the new construction, there's the short sale, there's the REO. He said pick 2. Pick 2 of those that you want to be, maybe even 3, and develop it because otherwise it's going to be going away. And so it goes right in line with the change.
And this isn't a normal market. There's not you touched on REO. It's not a normal market. There's reports now coming out that basically the reason that the banks and the politicians, let's be honest, have been delaying the release of all the foreclosures is because the banks simply don't have the financial ability to take all the losses. And when they put those houses for sale and they actually sell, that becomes a loss, and the banks can't really absorb it. And the banks have been, it's now since like 2005, 6 or 7, depending on what part of the country you're in. They've been pushing that ball forward as literally as far as they can, and now we're at the end zone, and they have to start putting these properties for sale. So there's going to be a ton of more inventory come for sale. And so, Matt's message will probably gear even more towards expireds because if you're a underwater owner or soon-to-be underwater owner and now you're competing with not just, 100 REOs in your market, you're competing against 500, well, then you have to even be more aggressive on price. So here's the thing that I like about what Matt's delivering. It's a package, right? Matt, as I say this, I'm kind of laughing because I'm sure half your clients sign on with you, and then they try to tell you what to do. Is that probably about right?
I don't know. No, not necessarily. I think it was in the early days, not as much now. I think they, by doing these masterminds and by, it's changed. I mean, you will get some, but generally, for the most part, they want to say, just don't tell me now. Do what you do and make the phone ring. And so
Ken from Northville, Michigan asks, question for Matt, at what point in your real estate career should you consider radio?
I think it's a great question, and I think as a coach, I think, Tim, you could also chime in whenever you want to on this. Radio is probably, I would say, in a chart, if you would chart all the lead generation tools, probably, there's probably I think I saw a chart one time, might be number 25 or 26. There's a lot of other little things that can be done to where someone can build up to doing it. Radio is, I've illustrated it this way, it's like gasoline on the fire. You could throw gasoline on a fire and you could ignite, you could basically make a factory work twice as productive. Or you could throw gasoline on a fire and burn down a building. It all depends on what the inner structure is. So if you've got, like for instance, if you've got a team in place, what I look at is I say, all right, does someone have a buyer agent, 3 or 4 buyer agents in place? Do they have a listing partner or someone that could also help with listings? Because if they're running listings all throughout the week, they're going to run out of time. Also, do they have, what really can help, do they have an internal call center? Do they have someone that's handling, inside sales where people call in, a call coordinator? Those are some factors. And then, if someone's right at about 70, 80 deals, typically they've built the team where they can do this, that they can support more business. And then financially, generally, radio should be, marketing usually is about 10% of the budget. So typically, if somebody is spending anywhere from 5 to 10%, but if they're making, 30, 40,000 GCI a month, at that point they can look and say, I want radio to be an investment. It's not a quick fix. It's not something like postcards or not something you can spend and get that money back in 30 days. You've got to look at it and say, can I invest this money for 6 months before I see my first paycheck? Not that you're not going to see phone calls, not that you're not going to get listings, but obviously in this market, it takes a lot longer to sell a home, than it did 3-4 years ago. So you have to look at it that way. Does that make sense, Tim?
No, it's totally a good point. The last point I think really kind of emphasizes everything we've talked about. In this marketplace, you list a house, right? It doesn't matter what kind of house it is, distressed or not, It's kind of funny, the whole term distress is a bit of a misnomer at this point, considering most of the homes that are selling are the so-called distressed properties. Makes me believe the guys that have equity that are competing against the well-priced distressed properties, they're truly the distressed sellers. But aside, when you look at if you thought about that, it's kind of ironic how much things have changed. But what I'm hearing you say really is at the end of the day, it really depends on your tolerance. Some people are getting in this market, Matt, we have to acknowledge these guys. Some people are getting in the market with money, right? Some people there's a new breed of realtors, and we're seeing these guys bubble up. And, Julie tells me about these when she gets these free coaching calls. And they're they're airline pilots. They're people that have MBAs and, that we've had some very well-educated people from other completely unrelated industries that choose real estate because they see lots of low-hanging fruit. And they are usually coming to the table with money. They'll call us up and they say, I want to go, I'm a brand new realtor. I want to go into your graduate coaching program. I want to be coached by you. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. And then you find out they sold no houses. But these guys don't have any, old software that you have to clear out from having been in the business forever and having all these, screwed up ways of thinking. They're willing to listen, but most importantly, they are massive action takers. So I assume you get some of those guys occasionally too that are just right out of the chute that have money that want to, as you said, throw the fuel on the fire, but they're able to sustain it. Just on a side note, I remember when Julie and I were selling real estate in Columbus, Ohio, there was an HREU realtor, HREU has now become Real Living, named Dave, and I don't remember Dave's last name. Julie, do you remember his name if you're on?
I will try and remember it for you. Yeah. I know who you mean, but I can't think of his last name either.
So this is a true story.
I remember it actually because I'm on Columbus right now with Sandy Raines. And
hey, guess what? Sandy's another Harris Real Estate University superstar and student. So we have a lot of people in common, Matt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but I know what you're talking about because the station there was really difficult to deal with. but he gave me that. He used that example, but the guy's out of the business.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What happened?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess he burned out. I guess he got over his head in dollars, but he was it was because it was funny. He tried to use that as against me, like, well, I know what I'm doing, by helping realtors. I don't need you. And I was patient about it. Well, a couple years later, I came back with Glenn, Beck, and Sandy, and all of a sudden, this guy's off here. This guy's a lot more humble, and we've rocked it. I mean,
well, Sandy's the number one realtor in the state of Ohio. She is involved in, I think, at least our short sale and REO program. But here's what's interesting about those radio ads with Dave. So I don't know we've long since moved, but you would hear that thanks, Dave. That was his tagline. He would have his past clients on his radio show say, thanks, Dave. And that became, he went from being, I'm sure he was a decent realtor. I don't know what his volume was, but then he just shot right up with inside, it seemed like overnight, but I'm sure it was probably like 2 or 3 years. And he was selling houses everywhere, and, it was an impressive thing. So if you are ready, and I think Matt and I have made it really clear, this is an investment. This is not something that everyone should be doing. Matt threw out the number that you should be making $30,000 a month and then be able to comfortably, again, depending on your market, budget, 10% of that to radio. I think that was Matt being, really fair. And if you're not at that level and you want to do radio and you've got a bunch of money saved, well, maybe call Matt up, but don't be surprised if he says, no, you're not quite ready yet. This is something that's not for everyone. But the information that you got from Matt, the message that he's delivering, the USPs that I think he conveyed to you guys, again, you can fire me at any time, and what were the other big ones that you're seeing working? Let's kind of hit the list, Matt.
I mean, I would say that, if you're not happy, fire me. I would definitely say, marketing, that this is, we have a system for attracting buyers, and, I mean, the guaranteed sale has been a staple in what we do.
You're going to have to
test.
Those
are the big ones.
You're going to have to test that strategic in one of the markets and see if it works. And it has to be a more sophisticated market like San Diego.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I got some more questions here. Any other questions, guys? Go ahead and enter them into the webinar as we wrap this call up. Hopefully everyone's gotten a lot from this call. I've enjoyed it. All right, we talked about that question from Ken. Let's see. Julie, any other questions coming in your IM while we were doing this?
I'm looking through those now, so stay tuned just a second here.
Matt, lots and lots of really great comments. I mean, lots of people saying that they really enjoyed it and they got a lot of information. I won't read all the names, but there's probably 50 or 60 people that have said really nice things. And it's interesting, nobody's asking questions. So we must have done a really good job of conveying our information, accomplishing our goal.
Hey,
all right, good. Julie, any other questions come in on your IM?
Nope, I think these guys get it, and I think if it's not right for them right now, it's a great goal to have, for added exposure. And just the ideas that come out on what I hear as a coach is that these commercials are all about, the homeowner. It's not all about, hey, I'm number one at this, number one at that, and all about the realtor. It's, ask me about my guaranteed sale. Fire me if you don't like me, all that kind of stuff. So I think the message is important, even if these guys aren't ready to actually write the check.
Yeah, there you go. I think
absolutely. I used to floor people when I sell radio, and I'd walk in and say, I got bad news. We're not the number one station. And they almost, because every station will tell them they're number one. I say, it is WIFM. What's in it for me? That's in that message. It's got. I don't care whatever marketing you're in. It's not about you. It's about the needs of the seller. Julie, you hit it right on the head.
On the webinar screen, there's a link that you guys can click and check out Matt's website. Email directly. He's very good at getting back right away. Call him. This interview obviously is free, and it's going to be free for downloader and listen to and replay anytime in the future. So I'm sure that link will still work. Matt, I really appreciate you being this week's superstar. Is there anything else you want to say out to the approximately 1,000 agents that are listening now, and I'm sure the thousands more that will listen in the future? Anything else you want to say to all of these folks as we wrap this call up?
Hey, I just say that you're very fortunate to work with people like Tim and Julie. I mean and what I respect is there's a lot of people in this industry that wanted a piece of my business to give me any platform time, and so when someone seeks out someone to interview and doesn't expect a dime, what that tells you is that they're truly seeking out people that are cutting edge and people that they know are going to really help their clients. And I know Tim really screened me with a lot of questions first, and I respect that because I know that him and Julie are truly looking out, for what's best. So, I apologize in advance if I have to say, I can't work with someone, but I will say this, that things do change. Sometimes, because I've had the privilege of working with people like Nate Martinez and Lester Cox in Phoenix. I currently work with Curtis Johnson. I'm friends with all of them, but just sometimes paths change, things are different. So who I'm working with today may not be who I'm working with tomorrow, but still, hopefully there were some things that we shared that can definitely help overall in someone's marketing. And certainly with having great coaches like Tim and Julie, what I really got jazzed about was your angle about, how there's a lot of sellers that don't have to declare hardship to do a short sale. I'm definitely going to be working that in. I've already got one of my agents that's going to have you on his talk show. You already told me this morning that's pumped about it, and I think you guys are right on the cutting edge, and I love being affiliated with people like you.
Well, I appreciate that, and here's some more pearls for you that I know this message is not getting out clearly, is you do not, I love saying this because it always raises the cackles, and I always get emails and comments on the Real Estate Insider News website. Here it is. Ready for it? You do not need to have a hardship to do a short sale. A lot of you guys have been taught wrong. Matt is going to take that information that he and I have been talking about and obviously apply it to some of his radio ads. The strategic default movement is something that's a very taboo topic in the real estate industry, and frankly, I have no idea why. We're not supposed to be the morals police, guys. Agents, we're just supposed to provide the service for our clients. We're not telling you to do anything unethical or illegal or anything like that. But if someone calls you and they want to do a strategic short sale to avoid foreclosure, take the listing, of course, and don't try to be all high and mighty. Lots of opportunities out there to serve people on different levels, guys. So open your minds to the possibilities that this market has. Matt, it is kind of interesting. I should have maybe mentioned this earlier, that we've seen a lot of top producers, guys that have been top producers for a long time, actually build their businesses even greater. But I have to say, on a larger percent, I've seen a new generation, a new breed of realtors that were just maybe ordinary average realtors that have adapted to this market, applied new techniques and new ways of thinking, and they've become the top producers in the nation. And hopefully superstar interviewers are educating a lot of you to realize the opportunities this market has. A lot of people bellyache about, this market, I just want it to return to the way it was. Well, it's never going to return to the way it was. So please adapt, change, and realize that this is the best market for all of you to truly be of service to help other people, help your sellers, and let's be honest, make a ton of money. So Mr. Matt Wagner, Real Estate's radio and TV expert, I really appreciate you being this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstar. Everyone else, have a fantastic weekend. And if you want to listen to the replay of this call, go to realestateinsidernews.com and click on the button at the top that says Superstar Interview. Have a fantastic weekend.